like to introduce our special guest for this segment, which is Bob Maher. He is famous for being a Magic player, but today he is here as the president of ACD, which is the second largest, almost the largest, distribution company in the game world in North America. So he's going to tell you a little bit about distribution, and mostly he's here to answer your questions, whatever it is that you may want to know about getting your game into distribution.
Okay, so yeah, I'll give you a little bit of background about myself first. I grew up as a gamer, role-playing, board gaming. When Magic came out, I got very involved in Magic early on, very involved in the organized play structure for Magic. I actually played Magic for a living for a number of years. Then when I got out of college, tried my hand at a couple of different jobs. Then an opportunity presented itself when the previous owner at ACD, in the late 90s, had fallen on hard times. And between him and the bank, we made an offer, and I ended up purchasing ACD. So that was about 8 years ago now. ACD has grown quite a bit in that period of time. We're about 5 times the size we were when I bought it. So things have been going very well. So I just kind of want to give you a bit of background, how I got involved in the industry. The fact that I really have been a lifelong gamer, although the distribution side of things, although it's in the games industry, really concentrates on the business aspects of things. It's not quite as passionate as the creative side or the playing side. So a lot of what you hear me talking about today might seem very cut and dry, almost too direct. And I wanted to let you know that it's not me being disconnected from the industry, it's the nature of the beast when you're in distribution. ACD as a distributorship has 3 warehouses. We cover, about 90% of the US Census last I checked in 2 days shipping or less. And we are very much a national distributor. We carry the majority of products that stores are looking for. We have a staff of around 100, and this is what we do day in and day out. What I was here to talk to everyone about, I assume, is kind of getting your games into distribution, what distribution sales means, at least from my point of view. And the biggest thing I want to make sure everybody understands after being here today is that distribution sales isn't always an appropriate goal, and nor is it the finish line. This is not like the goal line you're trying to cross or the line at the end of a marathon. Just having a distributor purchasing the products from you and having them for sale, distribution houses they don't take care of your marketing, they don't take care of the push through, and they have a lot of very particular needs out of what they need from the product on an ongoing basis. So I'll start to go through those. Right now, I think ACD is carrying it's between 15 and 17,000 active parts that we will sell our customers every time they call up, or any range of them. We have about 400 new releases every month. Some of our retail stores we talk to on a daily basis or every other day, but a lot of them are more once a week, once every other week. So even getting a game into distribution, you have a new release coming out, very excited about it. My salespeople will end up talking to a retailer about new releases for probably a half hour every 2 weeks. Maybe, longer and shorter, depends on the retail store. I'm just trying to give you guys a good guess on things. But if you can think about, we just split the month in half. They have 200 new releases to go over in that half hour. There's a good chance, even if your game is in distribution and it's a new release, it may not get mentioned on every phone call. It has to serve a niche. It has to be particular to that store. It has to be something that probably that sales rep has had some experience or successes selling to other stores. One of the best things for new games is excitement at shows like this or larger shows. There's a very big importance in our industry of pull from the end consumers. End consumers walking into retail stores and asking for a game. At retail store hears it a few times. They'll call their distributor saying, hey, do you carry this? That will build up a little bit. And then when we hear it from our retail stores a few times, we will go out and work a little harder on procuring that game. Distributors also have a number of demands. Quite typically, we buy things at 60% off of retail. For those of you who are making games, that doesn't leave a whole lot of room. But we're also sending it back out to our retailers typically around 50% off of retail with free shipping. So between paying our staff, bringing it in, putting it on the shelf, taking it off the shelf, putting it in a box, putting the packing material in the box, paying the shipping to the retailer, that doesn't leave a lot of room for us either. So those numbers aren't terribly negotiable. Even if you have a great game, don't expect to go into distribution. Oh, I know that's what they usually do, but for my game, it's going to be different. You could just wash that one out of your mind. It happens so infrequently, I just wouldn't concentrate on it. Distributors are also going to be looking to not have to stock the product terribly deeply, but be able to get a reliable supply of those games, which also typically means if you have one game to sell, it becomes very, very difficult. We're going to expect free shipping from the publishers. So if you only have one game and we only want to stock 12 or 24 in each warehouse, the shipping will eat you alive. It just will. And unless the game is selling great, distributors aren't going to be ordering 72 or 120. And you'll see these are oftentimes in multiples of 6 because that's the most common case count for a game, but whatever the case count happens to be for a game you're working on. So a lot of times distribution sales become more appropriate when there's more games in your catalog. There are a number of companies out there that are kind of consolidators. They specialize in that in-between area. We work very closely with Game Salute. We work very closely with Impressions, Advertising and Marketing. We work very closely with PSI. And they specialize more so in the game publishers who have 1 or 2 games. And because it usually takes a few games for us to be able to put in an order with someone every 2 to 4 weeks that can hit free shipping where it makes sense for everybody. That publisher is still making money on the product and we can still reliably stock it without our customers asking for it and not having it available. Because that will be the quickest thing to kill any game. The inertia behind a game, I know, can be terribly difficult as you're a new game designer, a new game publisher, to, roll your chicken bones or whatever the case may be to figure out how many to print originally. You don't want to be sitting on them forever. You don't want to sink all the money into a game that isn't going to sell. But also, let's say the game starts to sell great at first, and you realize you need to print the game again. That takes a considerable amount of time, and takes a considerable amount of money, because even as you sell your game into distribution, there's usually a lag in time between when you sell it to them and when you actually get paid for it. Typically, it's about 30 days, but those arrangements can vary all over the board. Some distributors are actually going to want a number of the games to be put on consignment, which can lead to another number of other constraints. Wow, so I don't want to discourage people. I mean, I run a distribution company. I love being in the games industry. This is what pays my bills, keeps a roof over my family's head. I think distributors serve a very important role in the game industry in the United States. But I just want to make sure I'm here to tell you that it's not for everyone, nor is, like I said before, nor is it a finish line. I feel we've had a number of people, even after I've given them this same talk, be like, okay, they took 24 of my game into all 3 warehouses. I ended up finding out later that I was the only distributor that they sold the game to, and there was no marketing follow-up. They weren't going to shows and demoing the game. And showed up a few months later. Why hasn't my game sold? Why haven't you sold my game? I went through this again. My salespeople are more than just someone on the phone taking orders, but to put it in the proper context, we don't sell your game. The game has to sell itself, and the customer usually has to ask for it. There's just too many games. I mean, all of you have probably seen just the number of games that come out in any given year. It's incredible. It's actually quite daunting. And it's almost like lightning in a bottle. We've had some fantastic games that everybody in our company has loved that just didn't catch on for one reason or another. Some of my favorite games that I've played, just kind of the sell-through just kind of petered off. It wasn't worth reprinting, and the game is just lost to time at this point. There's just nothing going on with it. And then I've had some games that we'll just say I didn't think were the greatest games. They left a little to be desired, and I mean, they just caught fire, and it was just reprint after reprint, and we can never keep it in stock. And I'm all for different strokes for different folks. I mean, everybody loves a different type of game, but it's very hard to predict. And Having a good game doesn't mean it's going to sell. I'm not trying to come down on everybody here. I just want to give you a realistic outlook that although it's the games industry, it's still an industry, and it can be tough. Any business can be tough. If it wasn't tough, everybody would do it. So just try and keep kind of a good scope on things. We have a small enough room that I don't need to stand up here and keep talking at you. I'd love to hear why some of you decided that at noon on your Saturday, this would be the place to be. Like what information you're looking for, what you're working on yourselves, why you wanted to hear whatever you thought I might come up here and talk about.
If I have a list of retailers who have been asking for my game, and I've just been selling it myself, but I want to go into distribution, is it helpful to give you that list of retailers? If I have all their email addresses and phone numbers, does that help, or is that not useful?
So if you have sales information on your own game and retailers who have been asking for it or had some success with it, every distributor will be different. I mean, we're all our own unique flower. Handing that information over to my buyers typically will help. Now, it helps more if those are customers that we have a good relationship with and we can talk to. Not so much that we're trying to cannibalize those sales, that we're trying to take them from you so we can sell it to them. We just need to have a frank conversation with the retailers about, okay, do people come in asking you for this game, or do you have it out on a table and you're demoing it every day and that's why it sells? How fast does it sell? How excited are people for it? Are people looking for an expansion? We will have a litany of questions for those retailers, but the retailers we have a good relationship with, we can really take the information they give us to heart. So putting us in contact with retailers that are having success with your game helps a lot. I mean, those testimonials from other people who live and breathe in the game industry can go a long way.
Piggybacking on that, is there any kind of exclusivity that if you sign in distribution, you can't sell directly to retailers?
We don't deal much in the way of exclusivity. So there's a number of exclusives in the game industry. ACD has some of my competitors have some, and those more or less happen out of different needs. The retailers that, or the vendors that we deal with, if they want to list it for sale directly to retailers, and it's not a contractual rule. If you're selling it to those retailers cheaper than I'm selling it to those retailers, then I just don't care to carry the game anymore. You haven't done anything wrong. It just doesn't fit our needs for our business any longer, because I'm there to be a partner to the retail stores that are out there, and I can't in good conscience tell them to buy the game from me if I know they can get it cheaper somewhere else. The first conversation a lot of my salespeople have with their retail stores is, do you have an account with Wizards of the Coast Direct? Because you can get Magic cheaper from them directly than you can get it from us. It's not that I like giving up sales. We're trying to step off on the right foot, and we want to be a business partner to those stores. We want them to be as successful as possible, because it actually makes our job much easier down the line. It's much easier for them to pay their bills. They can trust the things that come out of our mouth, and we can have a good relationship back and forth. So if a publisher wants to sell to retail stores at less than what I sell it to them for, that my company would have an issue with. Other than that, as long as you're selling it to them at the same price I'm selling it to them for, and they prefer to buy it from the publisher, well, by all means, they should be able to do that. And I would never tell any up-and-coming publisher to restrict the channels in which anybody can get their game. I just get it out there, get it played. You have to get traction. I mean, we spoke earlier about lightning in a bottle. You do your best. By all means, sell it wherever it can be sold.
Going back to your story earlier about two types of product you received. One you received, the guy didn't know work, came back to it after why it didn't sell. If I'm that guy and you're carrying my product, are you going to give me a list of your retailers so I can market them directly so they can come get it from you?
No.
Do we partner that way at all, or do I have to kind of pick and choose? Because maybe you don't service all my retailers, and I'm wasting time with those guys who I can't sell to.
Yeah, no, our retailers, and I know most of the other distributors in the industry work very similarly. We consider our customer list to be somewhat proprietary, kind of trade secret. there's not like a mass registry of all of the game retailers in the industry. So if we were to hand over our customer list to someone and then they struck a deal handing that list over to one of my competitors, it would be catastrophic. It would cost us far, far more than we could ever make off of selling any one game. So that's just not a relationship we get into. There are a few very large vendors, I mean the ones that have the giant tentpole outfits at Gen Con that we make that agreement with, but it's also accompanied by a very long contract with some very stiff penalties if they were ever to share that information, which I can only enter into those agreements with companies that have the financial wherewithal to pay those penalties should they break the contract.
Do you then have an in-house co-op advertising
Yeah.
organization? Or?
We print a monthly magazine. We have marketing options available. Like if you want us to design a promotional email with you, and a lot of these options are relatively inexpensively. I mean, it can be very hard to get a game off the ground, but putting together a solicitation email with our marketing team is usually in the low hundreds of dollars, and then that will go out to every one of our retailers. But we cap ourselves at 3 direct emails a day to our retailers that way. Not all of the distributors do that. So many of the retailers have those solicitation emails from all of their distributors just pointed to a different folder in their email, and when they have time, maybe they check it. So I'm trying to be brutally honest with you guys that, yeah, I might be able to sell that option. Other distributors might sell that option. I know there are a couple of my competitors that go north of 20 emails a day, and it just becomes noise at that point and just goes off to a different folder. I wish there were better marketing choices in the games industry. Like I said, we do a monthly magazine that does okay. It's not great. I don't know that there's a great marketing outlet in the industry. And then if you try and combine affordable and effective, I don't have a good one for you. I wish I did. One fantastic marketing effect, especially as a new publisher, is Kickstarter. I drive a lot of my other competitors crazy because, or even some of my customers. I know there are a lot of retailers and a lot of distributors that are very much against Kickstarter. I'm not one of them. You know what, it's an inviting industry, and it's really hard to get off the ground. If you can get that many people excited about your game ahead of time, just do it. If you can launch a successful Kickstarter, make sure you've talked to somebody with some experience in the industry, because a lot of people don't budget it correctly. So they hit their goal, they get all their money in, like, wow, it's more expensive than this to get my game off the ground. As long as you're not running into that issue, I believe Kickstarter can be a great tool. I think there's some great games in our industry that would not exist without Kickstarter. I don't think it's appropriate for everyone, but we don't have any rules, like we don't carry games that were Kickstarted. I actually really like the general feedback I get from looking at a Kickstarter. I can see how many backers they had, how fast it went up, and get an idea of whether we want to carry it or not. It does take some of the early adopters out of the retail stores, and I wish there was a good answer for that. I do think retailers have a legitimate complaint there that some of their alpha gamers are now going out and getting these games off of Kickstarter instead of out of their store, and it's very hard to keep a brick and mortar game store running. But for the benefits it offers a publisher, nothing's perfect. I mean, I feel very bad for the people operating in that space. I really do. And I think they have a legitimate complaint. But I don't think that complaint outweighs the positives of Kickstarter.
Trying to tag on to what you're saying and ask a question about that. The brick and mortar stores are seeming to make some sort of shift towards adding more value besides just, I have a bunch of shelves full of games. A lot of the board game cafes are popping up and whatnot, but in general, have you as a distribution company seen a decline from their demand versus someone that has strictly online stores, or do you not really measure those metrics? Or
We spend a tremendous amount of time looking at our metrics about the game industry. However, the industry itself has grown at a prodigious pace over the last 7-8 years.
Okay.
So it's hard to figure out who's doing what the best. And also, the company that I run has also grown like I said, we're about 5 times larger than we were 8 years ago. So I don't know if the metrics that we analyze, I don't know if that's indicative of the industry as a whole or just the segment of it that we're really good at. So there's so many unknowns because the numbers change so much from year over to year, and we have no control to base it off of. It's not like we can change one variable and see what happens. I mean, everybody is adjusting in the industry to the downward price effect of Amazon and trying to figure out what services they can give their customers to make customers want to come into their store. Just having it for sale isn't enough anymore because, I mean, somebody can wake up on a Saturday morning in their underwear and find somebody who has it for sale online. I mean, now you have to convince them to get dressed and get in their car and come to your shop. Like, that's a tough one sometimes. I mean, a lot of us are gamers at heart, so a lot of stores are branching out and becoming very inventive, whether they're concentrating on organized play, or they have a restaurant, or a cafe, or who knows what else. They're attached to a laser tag shop, or I mean, just whatever works in their area.
But in general, you've seen what you call, I guess, prodigious growth is what you call it.
Yes.
So you're not necessarily looking at the numbers going, oh, okay, well, most of these numbers are coming from actual brick and mortar versus online, because it's just growing, so you're happy with that.
It's been so long since we haven't added at least double digits of retailers as new customers to our distributorship. I mean, we're not even measuring months; it's years. So yeah, they're just the industry is just growing so fast that I agree with you that things are shifting very quickly, and there's a number of issues to address. It's very hard to get the metrics to get any sort of basis for it because the whole industry is changing so fast.
Cool. Thank you.
Well, he's raised his hand in the back a couple of times.
I was going to ask for clarification on your stance on Kickstarter. Is it the bigger or more popular the game went on Kickstarter, the more likely you wanted the distribution, or is there a sweet spot that if you feel that it sold too much that maybe the market is tapped?
So there's so many facets of kind of how we look at Kickstarter. I won't get into all of it. We'll just leave it at the lion's share of the important information is, yes, the bigger it gets and the more backer, not necessarily the dollar volume, but the more backers, the more people who really want it, is the more likely we want to carry it. We also look at what the lead time is in between when the backers get it and when retail stores can sell it. If you have items that are exclusive to the Kickstarter that may have been pushing the Kickstarter that retailers won't have at their disposal. If you're going to create some sort of secondary item that only the retailers can get. So that those early adopters who show their friends how to play, then their friends can come into the retail store and get a slightly different, like an expanded experience in a different way, and that might even work together, so that we can take all the early adopters that Kickstarter has garnered and get them to push towards their friends buying the game also, and not just playing their copy of the game. All of those work into it. But I will give you the 80% of this is, yes, the bigger the better.
What should my first step be? If, say, I just launched or concluded my 4th or 5th Kickstarter, I've got a game, I decide I want to get this one into distribution. When do I talk to you? At what point during the process? What should be my first step?
Anybody who has a game that we can evaluate, by all means you can contact us. No matter who you contact in the company, they're going to probably push you towards Kim Schrader in my company, and everybody, all the distributors have somebody who handles all of the incoming. We probably deal with, last time I talked to them, I think it was north of 50 entities looking to get us to, additional entities, get us to carry their game every month. Now we carry just over 300 publishers, so of those 50, just so everybody knows, we might pick up 1 or 2, maybe. Depends on how busy we are and how many other things are releasing. But Kim is very good at going through, okay, how many games do you have? But you have to know, like, what are your free shipping minimums? Where are you shipping from? What's the lag time from when I give you a PO to when you're going to ship it to me? What are your terms? I mean, that's the point where it becomes this creation and this idea and this fun game to just business. I mean, just make sure you know all of the numbers, all of your discounts and what's available and whatnot, and then he'll go through it, and then if it passes kind of a minimum bar, he'll take it to his manager, and then we'll discuss whether we want to carry it or not. And like I said, it's probably 95% of the time we let somebody know. If it's not close, it's just no, we're just not interested right now. I just wouldn't have the volume that we're interested in. If it's close, we'll tell you the few points it missed on, and then we will suggest, again, people go look at Game Salute, impressions, advertising, marketing, or PSI.
And that can take a very long time, that whole process.
The review process,
Yeah.
especially
So
if you,
talk about that.
if you hit our review process during Christmas, near the end of January, it's when a lot of the vendors have their distribution meetings. So myself, our executive vice president, the buyers are flying to Seattle to meet with miscellaneous. We're heading all over between kind of the end of January and end of February. Or if you hit con season, like when it's Origins and Gen Con, a lot of us are gone during Essen, and then there's a lot of smaller cons in between that take a lot of attention. It could turn a 2 to 3 week process into a 2 to 3 month process. And there's really no good answer. If your information's ready, January 20th, don't wait till March 1st to give it to us, because you're just gonna be behind all those people that got held up during that process. But I just wanna make sure everyone understands, it's not a fast process, and it's nothing personal. On top of it, the people who are contacting us, we haven't reached out to them to say, hey, we have a bunch of retailers asking for your game. It's people who've come to us saying, I think you should sell my game. The number of copies of that game that we may or may not sell doesn't impact our business greatly. So Kim has jobs other than intake of all of the miscellaneous vendors applying to us. So if anything comes up, it slides to the bottom. It's not something I'm happy about, but we also don't make enough money off of new submissions for me to hire someone that's their job. We would just lose money. As much as I would love to give all of the new publishers as much time and information as they might find valuable, I have 100 employees to worry about and make the business as healthy and profitable as I can so that they know they have a job to come back to every day. So that's just not a path we go down. We get to it when we can, and to be brutally honest, it's not an extremely high priority. Sure.
I'm working on my catalog of games, and I have 3 that I'm developing. 2 are traditional board games, and 1 is kind of in limbo where I can decide where it's a card game or a board game. Is there any recommendation on should I put it in like a Sushi Go tin, or should I make it a board game so that it's the same as my other 2? Should I have, the Days Like Wonder box, so that does packaging matter when you guys are buying games?
So this is probably the worst answer you can get. I think packaging absolutely matters. However, I can't tell you which one of those directions to go down. I think you need to keep looking at options until something hits you like, yes, this is the packaging that this game needs. Because there's so many games out there. And like I said, it's like catching lightning in a bottle. If you want the games to be successful, you have to be out at the cons, you have to be demoing it, you have to be talking to people about it. And if you have passion about the game that you're pitching, it's going to resonate with people far more than just being a polished salesperson or giving a good delivery. You have to be able to explain to them, I put it in this tin because when I open it, this happens, and I have this on the back of the tin, and it wouldn't let me do it with a box. Like, tell them a story about why it's packaged that way. They'll remember it. And then it has to resonate with you. So if you can pick which packaging resonates with you, whether being presented that way is more fun or more functional or whatever the case may be, every game out there needs that extra little bit of help to try and catch on. So I would not ignore packaging. I would not just throw everything in whatever cardboard box the printer happened to be able to give me the cheapest. Because you really need every leg up you can get. But there is not one type of packaging that sells better than others.
If somebody heard a talk like you're giving today, and they said, okay, I understand the limitations of what he's saying, and that person went out and started selling it themselves and demoing it themselves, and everything was going great, what would be the situation where they'd say, oh, at this point now I should talk to a distributor? What are you offering to them if they're able to sell directly to people and everything's working out for them?
Selling directly. There are plenty of games that distribution is not appropriate for, or games that I think distribution should be great for, but people do wildly successful without it. I mean, the best example of that is Cards Against Humanity. They sell more copies than they can keep in print. I think if they were to add on additional print capacity and sell through distribution, the number of copies they could sell would go up. But I also can't say on a business standpoint whether that would just fill their demand faster, and all of a sudden this super hot game that everyone was looking for would start to calm down because everybody got their copies. Whatever they're doing right now is working extremely well for them, so then that works. Then we're a middleman. There's publishers and there's retailers, and we're a logistics partner in between, because retailers, especially mom and pop shops, they don't have time to call 300 different publishers, hit free shipping or not with all of them, order all of the games, put it on their credit card, start tracking all those shipments to make sure they got it and that their credit card was charged appropriately, they weren't overcharged or undercharged, they weren't charged for shipping when they weren't supposed to. Even as I start to explain just the first level of things they would have to deal with, again, nobody's going to do that. So that's why we exist. It's much easier for a retailer to call us, order product across 20 different vendors in one box on one invoice. We ship it to them for free. We are a logistics partner. If people are buying your game without giving a percentage of the money that's in the pipeline to a logistics partner, then by all means keep doing it. I don't take Kickstarter personally. I don't take people who sell outside of distribution personally. I have a company because I believe we serve a role that's very, very valuable to the retail industry. But if it's not appropriate for someone's game, more power to them. I got involved in this, like I said, because I was a lifelong gamer. I've done a number of other things in other industries. I, in all honesty, was making more money in other industries before I got into this one. But I love it here. This is the first time in my life for 8 years I've enjoyed going to work. Most days. But even still, I know on Monday when I go into work, I'm looking forward to it. And that holds the most value for me. And I think a lot of people in the games industry share that same value. And so however it works for an individual game, an individual publisher, an individual person, go with it.
So if I could just clarify that, it seems like what you're saying is that the distributor can sell to retailers who won't buy direct from us, and so that you increase the sales.
Yeah, so a number of retailers, like if you went to the game manufacturers show in Las Vegas, a lot of new publishers will set up a small 10 by 10 there. They get exposed to a lot of retailers. Someone will demo your game, and if they like it, their first question to you is going to be, well, what distributor are you with? If you can't answer that question, you can try and talk the retailer into just walking over to that distributor's booth and, well, we'd love to be with any distributor. Who do you like to use? Can I go over there with you? And so they can hear from a retailer that a retailer wants to buy it from them. It helps. It happens a lot at that show in particular. So I'm probably encouraging you to do things that my buyers are going to stab me for later. But it helps. Every little bit helps. So if you can't answer what distributor you're with at that show or whenever someone asks you, you have this hurdle that you now have to convince them why, well, I don't have one, but you should take the time to order it from me, to let me put this on your credit card for you to make sure that it came in, it wasn't damaged, if it was, that I handled it properly, that I wasn't overcharged, undercharged. It's just trying to remove as many barriers as possible from those retailers from getting it. Like I said, I think distribution serves a role, but if there are a number of games that just don't make it into distribution, there can be so many reasons for it. Well, the first buyer you showed it to just thought it was the worst idea. People are fickle in the game industry. My buyers are gamers. If they just don't like the game, it might not even make it to their manager. That doesn't mean the game's not going to sell. You just hit a roadblock that you have no control over. Sometimes it's in too big of a box. And for whatever, I've seen a number of games that the way they're designed, they just have to be in a 3.5-foot box that's only like yay big, because the components they use to make it. That costs me so much to ship. Once you go over a certain length, FedEx or UPS will hit you for these giant surcharges, where it doesn't, if I'm bringing in a pallet of them from a publisher to me, it's fine, it's no big deal. But when I try and sell them one at a time to retailers, because I ship with free shipping, it just eats me alive. And then we don't carry it. And it can be anything in between. So my advice was more, you go to distributors, you think you have a great game for distribution, and they all turn you down. I mean, you don't have to give up. So if you can develop these individual retailers who you can sell to and they'll sell your game, maybe it works better outside of distribution. Maybe at that point, you don't like answering the phones and doing all the individual sales. You want to get back to designing the next game. Well, then you can take that information of what retailers are buying your game, then go back to distribution again. But
I guess that's my core question. When would we know that we have a great game for distribution?
it's who knows? We carry a bunch of games that I'm not sure are great games for distribution. I mean, there's just so many games out there. All of us, all the way along the line, even the retailers to some extent, we're just guessing. We're just hoping everything works out for the best. I mean, that's one of the main reasons that, so there's a large, and the publishers and distributors look at it, that there's a big chunk of margin that's there for the retailer. Don't attack that. They need it. Not every game they buy sells. At least I understand if they're buying a game for $10 and selling it for $20, that if you want to look at it in the idea of watching that one board game get printed and sold to the distributor and sold to the retailer and sold, they have the largest piece of it. But their economy of scale shrinks, and they're the ones holding the bag when games don't sell. I mean, distributors are also, but I have a number of people who just look at the sell-through on individual games on a daily or weekly basis. I mean, individual retailers don't have that. We can usually address it much earlier, put it on sale, or our business is just designed to absorb that loss at our margin, and that's why there's so much margin for a brick and mortar retailer. So I just say that it's also why internet sales take such a big chunk out of brick and mortar retailers in our industry. It's because in our industry, there's more room there for them to discount on than there are in many others. Like my company also sells the full line of Hasbro products. The margin is nowhere near as good on Hasbro products as they are in the rest of the games industry because they're more of a known entity. When they sell them to big retailers, those retailers know they're going to sell through 80 or 90% of them, and then they don't have nearly the online competition that our games have because, there's not as much to cut. When they're selling a game of Monopoly to Toys R Us for $8 and Toys R Us is selling it for $9.50, there's not a whole lot of space for that online discounter to work themselves in between. So it's just one of the aspects of our industry. But that margin's there for a reason, and they need it. Anybody else? Hey, fire away. I got nowhere else to be.
I want to start selling things at cons, and you have a bunch of games that aren't selling. How do I get your crap games?
Most distributors have relationships with some people, but it's just approach us. We have people come up to us at the Gamma Trade Show every year, and we also set up at Toy Fair every year, and Toy Fair especially. But they just come up and say, I'm looking at, typically the term for that is closeout games. It's a game you've just decided you no longer want to carry, but I'm interested in buying closeout games. And we take all that information when we go through our inventory and find out the things we just want to get rid of, whether it be at half price or pennies on the dollar. We put the list out to the closeout people who have introduced themselves to us or who we've worked with, and they give us a price. Like, this is what I'll pay on these different things. And if we have the information for one of those people and they don't buy anything from us, usually, or give us what we consider to be a reasonable response after the first 2 or 3 times, we just take them off the list. We just don't email them anymore because at every one of these shows, like at Toy Fair, we'll usually have 20 to 25 people approach us saying that they want to do that. At Gamma, it'll be 5 to 10. And between that, through the course of the year, we'll probably sell to 2 or 3 of them. So we just figure out whose needs meshes best with our excess inventory. And then we try and use the same people over and over because there's always issues with shipping and payment and things. And once you find somebody that it works well with, you try and stick with it. Fire away.
You kind of alluded to the actual numbers, but could you give like a lowest end and highest end, what you are buying and how you're selling through to retailers? far as
On pricing?
your games? From
Oh,
a
quantity?
Yeah.
Well, some of the products we list in our catalog or in our system is special order only, that because we do regular business with the vendor, they might have some really cool 4-foot version of their game. I'm not going to stock regularly. But because I order from them all the time, if somebody wants to tell me, no, I want to buy that, I'll order one for them, bring it in, and sell it. So I guess our smallest quantity is 1. And I mean, once you start getting into the big games, I mean, it's 5 figures. I don't know that there's any titles that we're selling 6 figures of right now, unless you start counting like packs of Magic. But no, I mean, there's certainly games that we cut on any single time, like a 5-figure PO for. And that's about as close in as you're going to get me to give on that information.
How long does that take to sell? Is that a month?
A couple months, probably. But I mean, you're talking about some of the games that every store has, and so does every Walmart and Target and whatnot. I mean, some of those games just sell incredibly well. Like Steve Jackson, who's here this weekend, Munchkin, sells incredibly well. I don't know that I could get burned no matter how big of a PO I put in for Munchkin. It would just be a matter of how long it took me to sell it.
You carry distribution, do you have to carry equally all your warehouses, or do you ever do a regional, something you know will sell well in New York, for example, do you carry only at that warehouse, or do you carry equally across all your warehouses?
Every distributor handles it differently. There are certainly some distributors that only order product to regionalized warehouses. My business, if we're going to order a product, we're going to order it to all 3 warehouses, although it might be in different quantities. We have plenty of, we have a number of miniature games that sell really well on the West Coast and not so well in the other 2 locations. And it might be we order 60 on our West Coast location and 6 in the Midwest and 6 on the East Coast. But it has to do with our shipping policies, that if someone's doing a reasonably sized order from us and they want a product that is in a warehouse across the country from them, as long as the order is a good size, we will still ship it to them for free. And in order to avoid that, we carry at least some of all of the products in all of our warehouses and do our best to gauge demand. But we will absolutely stagger it, but we'll only carry a product if we see a reason to carry it in all 3 locations.
Do you see a trend of games that are picked up by major retailers that incoming will say that's a game that's really going to make it a because I know a lot of games are niche games, and so they'll never sell it at big chains.
I don't spend a lot of time concentrating on big chains because I don't sell to them. I don't sell to Walmart, I don't sell to Target. My wheelhouse is independently owned brick and mortar stores. There are certainly some games when we're at shows, we're like, oh wow, that's a great idea, that's going to sell really well at Target. And then all of a sudden we'll see it at Target, and 3 months later we'll be talking to a publisher and they'll be like, wow, they didn't sell any. I had to take all of those back as a return, I don't know what I'm going to do with them. So it's just like trying to figure out what games sell in the hobby industry. It's some sort of voodoo. I mean, we have to find our chicken bones and our tea leaves, and so the only ones that when the bigger stores started getting involved in, we all assumed Settlers of Catan and Ticket to Ride would do just fine in those larger retailers. After that, I think it's a wild guess. I mean, I've been standing in the aisle at Target when somebody walks up, Wits and Waggers, I've been looking for that. I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, that's not how it's pronounced, but I'm glad you want to buy it. So it really takes all kinds, and I'm kind of glad it does. It's keeps it interesting. Anybody else? Any things that might be tangentially associated that they just want to talk about? Because even if it's not specifically distribution, I have been doing this, like I said, for about 8 years now. I'm by no means a grizzled veteran in this industry. Like I said, Steve Jackson's downstairs. There's many other here at the show that have been doing this for longer than I've been alive. If there's nothing else, I'll just go ahead and wrap this up. If anybody has any individual questions they don't really care to air right now, I'll hang around here for a little while, or if you see me around the convention anyplace, please feel free to grab me and say, oh, I thought of this one thing, what do you think about blank? Other than that, I mean, if people have games that are looking to sell to ACD in particular, the best place to start is our contact information on the website. And I will tell you right now, it will feel painful going through that process. That's not an accident. If you're going to have the general wherewithal to market your game, to get people excited about it, to just go out there and just have, whether it's the grit or the talent or the inspiration to get a game from the design level to selling well in retail stores, you're going to have an incredible amount of perseverance. And so the people that fall by the wayside going through that process, trying to get into distribution, and unfortunately it just makes our job a little easier. I'll tell you right now, I'm sure we miss something here and there. I'm sure we miss a couple of items, but you know, it's, like I said, it's kind of a low priority for us because most of the new vendors we pick up don't sell very well. But the people who get through that process, it may or may not work out, but at least they have something going for them at that point. But, well, thank you. Oh, fire away. Wait.
I have one question. The name of this particular seminar is Salesmanship, Distribution, Molding, and Videos. What sorts of things were you thinking about addressing with those last bits?
So I think they were supposed to have more people here speaking. But but videos and molding?
Well, this is Distribution 101. So I'm not...
I don't think that's how it ended up printed in the guide. Well, for videos, the only thing that we deal with is like learn to play videos and marketing videos. And I will say production quality matters. If it's the only way to get something done, just doing something in your garage or your friend that has a camcorder or just wants to record it on their phone, I believe something is better than nothing. But something that looks professional has profoundly more impact than something just done casually. Molding, if you're molding something and it needs to be spun or injection molded, make sure you've got somebody on your side who knows what they're doing. I mean, that's not even anything I'm going to touch, because so many people I've known in the game industry have just had things go terribly wrong going down that path. No, I found this, he said everything was going to be great and it was going to be delivered on time and it was going to be, they gave me the first off and they said this is the production quality. And I don't know that I've ever seen the first off proofs when they said this is what production quality will be, that it was actually production quality. So if you're new to the industry and your game requires molding, you need to find someone who's not new to the industry, because doing it yourself is just a gigantic pitfall that it would take a small miracle to clear without someone's help. What's that?
Straight good point.
Yeah. All right. If there's nothing else, thank you all very much for coming out. I hope I helped at least a couple of you.